Once upon a time, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, lived a man named Ethan. He was an introverted writer who thrived in the comfort of his cluttered home office, surrounded by stacks of books and half-finished manuscripts. One rainy evening, as the wind howled outside and raindrops tapped rhythmically against the window, he settled into his worn leather chair, ready to tackle the latest chapter of his novel. The soft glow of his desk lamp illuminated the pages before him, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. As he typed away, the soothing sound of rain created a cocoon of serenity around him. Hours passed, and he became so engrossed in his story that he lost track of time. Then, just as he reached a pivotal moment in his narrative, he heard it, a faint creaking sound. At first, he dismissed it as the house-settling old homes often had their quirks. But then he heard it again, louder this time, followed by a low thud that sent a shiver down his spine. Ethan paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. Just the wind, he muttered to himself, trying to shake off the unease creeping into his thoughts. He resumed typing, but the sounds persisted, a soft whisper, almost like a breath against the walls, and a shuffle of footsteps somewhere in the house. His heart raced, but he forced himself to focus, attributing it to his overactive imagination fueled by the storm. As the night deepened, the sounds grew bolder. The creaking escalated into rhythmic knocks, echoing through the hallway. Ethan's gaze darted toward the door, which led to the dimly lit corridor beyond his office. The shadows seemed to deepen there, the corners of the hallway stretching into an abyss. Taking a deep breath, he stood up and walked cautiously toward the door, curiosity battling his instinct to retreat. The house felt different now, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. He hesitated before opening the door, bracing himself for whatever lay beyond. As he stepped into the corridor, the air turned cold, and the sounds intensified. It felt as though the walls were alive, whispering secrets he couldn't quite grasp. The thudding now resembled footsteps, moving away from him, deeper into the house. Against his better judgment, Ethan followed, drawn by an inexplicable urge. "Hello," he called out, his voice shaky. "Is someone there?" The house answered only with silence, thick and oppressive. He turned the corner and entered the living room, where the flickering light from the fireplace danced on the walls, casting unsettling shadows. Everything seemed normal, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Suddenly, a picture frame on the wall rattled and fell, shattering on the floor. Ethan jumped back, heart pounding in his chest. He rushed to the frame, kneeling to pick up the broken glass, when he noticed something strange, a faint, cold breeze flowing through the room, making the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. As he stood up, he caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of his eye. A shadow flitted past the doorway leading to the kitchen. Ethan's breath hitched. He felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. He knew he should leave, but the pull of curiosity kept him rooted to the spot. "Who's there?" he called out again, his voice stronger this time, tinged with desperation. But the only response was a low whisper, like a soft sigh carried by the wind. It felt familiar, but he couldn't place it. With every ounce of courage, he moved toward the kitchen. The door creaked open, revealing an unsettling stillness. The light overhead flickered, casting eerie patterns on the walls. Ethan stepped inside, his heart racing. The sounds had stopped, but an unsettling heaviness hung in the air. Then, without warning, the refrigerator door swung open, slamming against the wall. The sudden noise echoed through the room, startling him. He stared at the open fridge, its contents illuminated in the dim light, but nothing seemed out of place. Just a few leftovers, some half-empty jars, ordinary items in an extraordinary moment. "Okay, this isn't funny anymore," Ethan said aloud, forcing himself to sound confident. But inside he was a bundle of nerves. Just as he turned to leave, he heard it again, the whisper, clearer now, as if someone was right behind him. He spun around, and for a split second, he thought he saw a figure standing in the doorway, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The temperature dropped even further, a chill creeping into his bones. With adrenaline surging, he backed away, his instincts screaming at him to run. He rushed to the living room, his mind racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. As he entered, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat before they returned. And then, he noticed it. A small, antique mirror hanging on the wall, something he had overlooked earlier. Its surface was fogged, as if someone had breathed on it. Ethan stepped closer, drawn by an inexplicable compulsion. As he wiped the condensation away with his sleeve, he was struck by a vision reflected in the glass, an image of the room behind him. But it was different. In the reflection, the furniture was in disarray, and shadows loomed larger, as if something was moving just out of sight. And then he saw her, a woman, pale and translucent, standing just beyond his shoulder, her mouth moving in silent desperation. Ethan's heart raced as he turned to face her, but she was gone. The air crackled with tension, and the whispers crescendoed into a frantic chorus, calling out to him. He stumbled back, eyes wide with terror, trying to grasp the reality of what he was witnessing. Just then, the power flickered, and the house was plunged into darkness again. He fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the shadows. But the whispering continued, now louder, echoing all around him. "Help us! Help us!" Ethan felt the weight of their pleas bearing down on him. He was no longer alone. The spirits of the past were reaching out, entwining their fate with his. As he stood there, the realization hit him. He was caught in a web of unfinished stories, a thread connecting him to the souls that lingered in the house. And now he had a choice to make. Would he delve deeper into the mystery and confront the darkness that bound them, or would he flee, leaving the secrets buried forever? With a trembling hand, he steeled himself, knowing the answer lay just beyond the shadows, beckoning him to uncover the truth. Ethan's heart raced as he grasped the flashlight, the beam flickering as he turned it back toward the darkened hallway. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices intertwined with a sense of urgency. "Help us! Help us!" echoed around him, wrapping him in a chilling embrace. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself, fueled by a mix of fear and curiosity. He had to understand what these spirits wanted, why they were bound to this place, and how he might be able to help them find peace. "Okay," he whispered to himself, the words barely audible over the rising din. "Let's do this." With each cautious step into the hallway, the air thickened, and the shadows seemed to press in closer, as if they were alive, yearning for something. He passed the living room and ventured deeper into the heart of the house. The whispers shifted, guiding him toward the basement door at the end of the hall. The heavy door loomed like a sentinel, its surface scratched and worn, hints of faded paint revealing its age. Ethan hesitated, feeling a cold draft seeping through the cracks. As he placed his hand on the doorknob, a jolt of energy surged through him, a sensation both electrifying and terrifying. With a deep breath, he turned the knob and pushed the door open, the hinges creaking in protest. A stairwell descended into darkness, and the faint smell of damp earth wafted up, mingling with the lingering scent of old wood. He flicked on the flashlight, illuminating the first few steps. Each creak echoed loudly as he descended, his heart pounding in rhythm with his footsteps. The basement was a cavernous space, filled with shadows and the remnants of forgotten things, old furniture draped in dust covers, boxes piled high, and the eerie presence of something unseen lurking in the corners. As he stepped further into the basement, the whispers transformed into a low, mournful wail. It was as if the spirits were warning him, urging him to turn back. But he couldn't stop now. The sense of urgency was palpable, and he felt a magnetic pull toward the far wall, where a faint light flickered. Approaching the wall, Ethan's flashlight caught sight of something strange, an old, ornate mirror standing against the concrete. Its surface was cracked and dusty, but it radiated a faint glow that seemed to pulse with life. The air around it felt charged, vibrating with energy. He reached out to touch the mirror's surface, feeling a strange warmth. As his fingers brushed against the glass, a vision flashed before him. A family gathered in this very basement, their faces radiant with joy, laughter echoing in the air. But then the scene shifted abruptly. A darkness encroached upon them, swallowing their joy, leaving behind fear and despair. Ethan stumbled back, his breath quickening. "What happened here?" he murmured, looking around for answers. The whispers intensified, swirling around him like a tempest of sorrow. "Help us finish what we started." Just then, a sharp chill swept through the room, and he turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a woman with hollow eyes and a mournful expression, her ethereal form flickering like a candle in the wind. She reached toward him, her mouth moving as if trying to speak. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. The woman's gaze held a depth of sorrow that pierced his heart. "Trapped, lost, unfinished," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising whispers. "We need you to remember, to help us find the truth." Ethan felt a rush of determination wash over him. "What truth? What do you need me to do?" The woman pointed toward the mirror, and in that moment he understood this mirror was a conduit, a link to the past that held the key to their liberation. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the spirits pressing around him, and turned back to the mirror. "Show me," he demanded, placing both hands on its surface. The glass shimmered, and he felt a surge of energy coursing through him, pulling him into the depths of the reflection. Suddenly, he was no longer in the basement. He found himself standing in the same room from his earlier vision, but now it was vibrant and alive. The family was gathered around a table, laughter echoing off the walls as they celebrated a birthday. A little girl with pigtails blew out the candles on a cake, her face lit up with joy. But as he watched, the scene darkened. Shadows crept in, and a figure cloaked in darkness appeared at the door. Panic spread across the family's faces, and Ethan felt a wave of dread wash over him. The atmosphere shifted dramatically, and he understood that something terrible was about to happen. "Help us," the woman's voice echoed in his mind. "You must stop it." With that realization, Ethan rushed toward the door in the vision, desperate to intervene. But as he reached for the doorknob, the scene flickered violently, and he felt himself being pulled back, the basement returning around him. He gasped, stumbling back as the energy from the mirror receded. The woman stood there, her form wavering, eyes filled with desperation. "You must remember, the family was taken trapped by the darkness. You have to find their story." Ethan's mind raced as he processed the fragmented memories. He felt an urgency to uncover the truth behind this tragic event, to give these spirits the closure they desperately sought. "What do I need to do?" he asked, determination igniting within him. "Find the letters, the stories hidden in this house. They hold the key to breaking the curse." The woman's voice grew fainter, and Ethan felt the energy surrounding her waning. He glanced around the basement, searching for any sign of the letters. As he moved past the mirror, something caught his eye, a stack of boxes pushed against the wall. He hurried over, his pulse quickening, and began to dig through the dust-covered items. With each box he opened, he found remnants of the family's life. Old toys, clothing, and photographs that evoked a sense of nostalgia mixed with sorrow. And then he stumbled upon a weathered envelope, sealed and slightly yellowed with age. Ethan opened it carefully, and inside were letters penned in elegant handwriting, accounts of love, joy, and the family's life before the shadows descended. He felt a connection to the words, as if the very essence of their lives flowed through the ink. But just as he began to read, the temperature in the room dropped dramatically, and the whispers rose to a deafening roar. Shadows danced violently along the walls, the atmosphere thick with impending dread. "Ethan, they're coming." The woman's voice pierced through the chaos, and he turned to see the dark figure emerging from the shadows once more, its eyes burning with a sinister light. Time was running out, and Ethan understood he had to act fast. With the letters in hand, he felt the weight of the spirit's hopes resting on him. The fight to uncover their truth and to defeat the darkness that had ensnared them was just beginning. "Stand with me," he shouted, raising the letters high as if they could banish the encroaching shadows. "I will not let you take them." The shadows surged forward, but Ethan felt the warmth of the spirits rallying around him, their collective energy merging with his resolve. He was no longer just a witness. He was a part of their story, and together, they would confront the darkness that sought to consume them all. But would it be enough? As the figure loomed closer, Ethan braced himself for the battle ahead, knowing that the key to their salvation lay within the truth of the past. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. Ethan stood firm, letters clutched tightly in his hand as the shadows writhed and lunged toward him. The dark figure, its form pulsating with malevolence, seemed to absorb the very light in the room. He could feel the weight of despair pressing down on him, the whispers rising to a cacophony that threatened to drown out his resolve. Together, he shouted, summoning the spirit's strength, feeling their presence surge around him. He lifted the letters high, allowing the light from his flashlight to reflect off the pages, illuminating the darkness. The energy in the basement shifted, growing thick with anticipation. As he read the first letter aloud, the words flowed like a lifeline into the chaos. Dearest Emily, the joy of this family is everything to me. The moment he spoke those words, the shadows recoiled, as if struck by an unseen force. With each letter he read, he felt the warmth of the spirit's gathering strength. The memories of love and laughter echoed through the basement, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. We will not be forgotten. We were happy once, he proclaimed, the conviction in his voice growing. But the dark figure surged forward, howling in rage, its eyes burning brighter. You cannot stop me. I am the darkness that binds them. It roared, the very walls trembling with its fury. Ethan pressed on, determined. He flipped to the next letter, his voice steady despite the chaos. To my beloved Thomas, I will always cherish our time together. The warmth from the spirits intensified, the light from the letters casting a radiant glow that began to fill the room. With every word, Ethan felt the bonds between the family grow stronger, their spirits intertwining with his own. The figure faltered, its shadowy tendrils flickering as it was momentarily pushed back. You think you can erase me? It hissed, but there was a tremor in its voice, a crack in its facade. Your darkness ends here, Ethan shouted, his voice resonating with the power of the letters. These stories will live on. He read faster, pouring every ounce of emotion into the words. To my darling children, you are my light in the darkest time. The shadows twisted and writhed, but the energy in the room continued to shift. The spirits, emboldened by the truth of their lives, surged forward, their forms coalescing into a brilliant light that surrounded Ethan. He could feel their love, their sorrow, and their longing for release. Suddenly, the basement was filled with a blinding light as the spirits intertwined with the letters, forming a protective barrier around Ethan. The dark figure shrieked, its form distorting in a desperate attempt to break through the radiant shield. Ethan pressed on, feeling a newfound strength coursing through him. To anyone who feels lost, know that you are loved, remembered, and never alone. He continued reading, his voice a powerful incantation that resonated through the darkness. With a final, powerful declaration, he read the last letter. We are forever bound by love, and love will conquer all. The moment he finished, the light exploded outward, engulfing the basement in a brilliance that shattered the darkness. The figure let out a final, anguished cry as the light consumed it, the shadows disintegrating like mist under the sun. The air crackled with energy, and for a moment, everything was still. As the brilliance faded, Ethan found himself standing alone in the basement. The oppressive weight of the darkness lifted. The air felt lighter, infused with a sense of peace and warmth. He looked around, the remnants of the past lingering gently like a soft whisper. Then, he saw them, the spirits of the family, their faces now serene, glowing with gratitude. The woman who had guided him stepped forward, her form more solid, less ethereal. Thank you, she said softly, her voice filled with warmth. You freed us. Ethan's heart swelled as he realized the significance of what had just occurred. I couldn't have done it without you. You showed me the way, he replied, tears welling in his eyes. Now we can move on. But your journey isn't over, she said, her gaze steady. Continue to tell our stories. Let them be remembered. You are part of our legacy now. With that, the spirits began to dissolve into shimmering light, their essence merging with the very air around him. As they faded, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him. He knew they were free, liberated from the darkness that had bound them for so long. He climbed the stairs back to the main floor, the house now vibrant and alive, filled with light. The shadows that once haunted the corners had vanished, leaving behind an air of tranquility. Ethan stood by the window, gazing out at the storm clouds parting to reveal a brilliant night sky filled with stars. He could feel the stories swirling in his heart, the memories of the family woven into his very being. In the days that followed, he poured himself into his writing, sharing the tales of the family he had freed. He wrote about love, loss, and the triumph of light over darkness, ensuring that their stories would never fade into obscurity. The house, once a place of dread, became a sanctuary of hope, a testament to the power of connection and the enduring nature of love. And every so often, as he sat at his desk, he could feel their presence beside him, a gentle reminder that he was never truly alone. Ethan's journey had transformed him, turning him from a solitary writer into a guardian of stories, a keeper of memories that would echo through time, ensuring that the light would always prevail over the darkness. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.